Hey crew, it's Pitt and I am back with some more philosophy. We are diving back into the works of Friedrich Nietzsche. This is Thus Spake Zarathustra. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along. It's not the format for everybody, but some people seem to get some enjoyment from it, so you're welcome to tag along. But before we begin, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time you get lost in terminology or anything, I have several playlists linked up here and down below that along with the source material so that you can go back and try to discern what I am talking about. I tend to put definitions and things in the beginning of the playlist. Um, I try to be as clear as possible when we're going through, but sometimes I just forget and say things that people are unfamiliar with. So it is much easier to go back and start at the beginnings, always. But you're welcome to dive in with us here. We are in section 3 of Thus Spake Zarathustra. This is 53, The Return Home. Let's dive in and see what's up. Oh, lonesomeness, my home, lonesomeness. Too long have I lived wildly in wild remoteness, to return to thee without tears. Now threaten me with the finger as mothers threaten. Now smile upon me as mothers smile. Now say just. Who was that like a whirlwind once rushed away from me? Who, when departing, called out, Too long have I sat with lonesomeness. There have I unlearned silence. That hast thou learned now, surely? O Zarathustra, everything do I know, and that thou wert more forsaken among the many, thou unique one, than thou ever wert with me. One thing is forsakenness, another matter is lonesomeness. That hast thou now learned, and that amongst men thou wilt ever be wild and strange. Wild and strange even when they love thee, for above all they want to be treated indulgently. Here, however, art thou at home and house with thyself. Here canst thou utter everything and unbosom all motives. Nothing is here ashamed of congealed feelings. Here do all things come caressingly to thy talk and flatter thee, for they want to ride upon thy back. On every simile dost thou here ride to every truth. Uprightly and openly mayest thou here talk to all things, and verily it soundeth as praise in their ears, for one to talk to all things directly. Another matter, however, is forsakenness. For dost thou remember, O Zarathustra, when thy birds screamed overhead, when thou stoodest in the forest, irresolute, ignorant where to go, beside a corpse, when thou spakest, Let mine animals lead me. More dangerous have I found it among men than among animals. That was forsakenness. And dost thou remember, O Zarathustra, when thou sattest in thine isle, a well of wine giving and granting amongst empty buckets, bestowing and distributing amongst the thirsty? Until at last thou alone sattest, thirsty, amongst the drunken ones, and wailedst nightly. Is taking not more blessed than giving, and stealing yet more blessed than taking? That was forsakenness. O dost thou remember, O Zarathustra, when thy stillest hour came and drove thee forth from thyself, when with wicked whispering it said, Speak, and succumb? When it disgusted thee with all thy waiting in silence, and discouraged thy humble courage? That was forsakenness. O lonesomeness, my home, lonesomeness, how blessedly and tenderly speaketh thy voice unto me! We do not question each other, we do not complain to each other. We go together openly through open doors. For all is open with thee and clear, and even the hours run here on lighter feet. For in the dark time weigheth heavier upon one than in the light. Here fly open unto me all being's words and word cabinets. Here all being wanteth to become words. Here all becoming wanteth to learn of me how to talk. Down there, however, all talking is in vain. There, forgetting and passing by are the best wisdom. That have I learned now. He who would understand everything in man must handle everything. But for that I have two clean hands. I do not like even to inhale their breath. Alas, that I have lived so long among their noise and bad breaths. O blessed stillness around me, O pure odors around me, how from a deep breast this stillness fetcheth pure breath, how it hearkeneth, this blessed stillness. But down there speaketh everything, there is everything misheard. If one announce one's wisdom with bells, the shopman in the marketplace will out-jingle it with pennies. Everything among them talketh, no one knoweth any longer how to understand. Everything falleth into the water, nothing falleth any longer into deep wells. Everything among them talketh, nothing succeedeth any longer and accomplisheth itself. Everything cackleth, but who will sit quietly on the nest and hatch eggs? Everything among them talketh. Everything is out-talked, and that which yesterday was still too hard for time itself and its tooth, hangeth today out-champed and out-chewed from the mouths of the men of today. Everything among them talketh, everything is betrayed, and what was once called the secret and secrecy of profund souls belongeth today to the street trumpeters and other butterflies. O human hubbub, thou wonderful thing, thou noise in the dark streets, now art thou again behind me. My greatest danger lieth behind me. In indulging and pitying lay ever my greatest danger, and all human hubbub wisheth to be indulged and tolerated. With suppressed truths, the fool's hand and befooled heart, and rich in the petty lies of pity, thus have I ever lived among men. Disguised did I sit amongst them, ready to misjudge myself that I might endure them, and willingly say to myself, Thou fool, thou dost not know men. One unlearneth men when one liveth amongst them. There is too much foreground in all men, that there can far-seeing, far-longing eyes do there. And fool that I was, when they misjudged me, I indulged them on that account more than myself, being habitually hard on myself, and often even taking revenge on myself for the indulgence. Stung all over by poisonous flies, and hollowed out like the stone by many drops of wickedness. Thus did I sit among them, and still said to myself, Innocent is everything petty of its pettiness. Especially did I find those who call themselves the good, the most poisonous flies. They sting in all innocence, they lie in all innocence. How could they be just towards me? He who liveth amongst the good, pity teacheth him to lie. Pity maketh stifling air for all free souls, for the stupidity of the good is unfathomable. To conceal myself and my riches, that did I learn down there. For every one did I still find poor in spirit. That was the lie of my pity, that I knew in every one. That I saw and scented in every one what was enough of spirit for him, and what was too much. They're stiff, wise men. I call them wise, not stiff. Thus did I learn to slow over words. The grave diggers dig for themselves diseases. Under old rubbish rest bad vapors. One should not stir up the marsh. One should live on mountains. With blessed nostrils do I again breathe mountain freedom. Freed at last is my nose from the smell of all human hubbub. With sharp breezes tickled as with sparkling wine, sneezeth my soul, sneezeth and shouteth self-congratulatorily, healthily, health to thee. Thus spoke Zarathustra. And once again we have him wallowing. Once again we have him complaining about his loneliness and acting like that's what he actually wants out of life. It's not. He wants companionship. It is obvious from the text, but regardless, he is trying to make the best of his lot, I guess. It is a hard road. We talk about it all the way through this. It is a hard road to do the right things. Most people do not want that. They really don't. They want to live their life in relative comfort and die as they see fit. They have no desire to be better. That is true. It is few and far between the ones who seek true knowledge. But you can't let that be bitter if you are a seeker of true knowledge. Just keep trying to find others. Keep trying to show others and keep trying to do the things. That does not mean that you have to stay where it is antagonistic. You will find willing ears somewhere. And if you are not finding it where you are, then you need to be somewhere else. But not necessarily in isolation in the woods with only animals for companionship, because that is not the nature of man. He had faced a grand betrayal by his friends, the people he had thought his friends, and he describes it several times, right? I am trying to show you a better way, and yet you don't want it. Well, God knows I can live with that, right? I am the living testimony of that. I am out here telling people that you do not have the nature for the bottom. You really, soul-wise, always desire better, but you are not willing to go forth and do it. And so I have had to stop associating with people that I love dearly, because they don't want that in their life, and I do, and I cannot be around someone who does not. I can't hang out with you if you want to stay in depression. I can't hang around with you if anxiety is going to be your life. I can't hang around with you if you're going to be backbiting and lying and stealing and doing all of the things that are associated with this mortal coil. If you are seeking that, then it is better for me to be alone. But I'm not going to be alone. I'm going to seek someone else. I'm going to try to find someone who is aligned with me, because they are out there. There are, few and far between, but there are people wanting better in their life. You watching this is evidence of that. We all have different paths, right? I teach moderation. I do not teach exclusion. Nietzsche seemed to be more on the path of exclusion and being very vocal about it. I don't find a problem with you having a drink. I have a problem with you drinking every day to oblivion. That's a problem. I have a problem if you're trying to hide your issues behind drinking, right? And that's just the one example. There are a myriad of them, but I don't have a problem with you taking a drink. I have exception with you trying to mask the things that are wrong in your life behind the drink. Nietzsche didn't have the distinction. He didn't have the moderation. He had the exclusion. And since he couldn't find people who also wanted to exclude, he excluded himself from people. And that is the wrong choice in that situation. There are times to be by yourself. Self-reflection, meditation, working through your shadow, all great times to be by yourself. But you're not meant to stay by yourself. You're not meant to be a hermit. You're not meant to be in exclusion. Or else you wouldn't have never been here. 54. The three evil things. In my dream, in my last morning dream, I stood today on the promontory. Beyond the world, I held a pair of scales and weighed the world. Alas, that the rosy dawn came too early to me. She glowed me awake, the jealous one. Jealous is she always of the glows of my morning dream. Measurable by him who hath time, weighable by a good weigher, attainable by strong pinions, divinable by divine nutcrackers. Thus did my dream find the world. My dream, a bold sailor, half ship, half hurricane, silent as the butterfly, impatient as the falcon. How had it the patience and leisure today for world weighing? Did my wisdom, perhaps, speak secretly to it, my laughing, wide-awake day wisdom, which mocketh at all infinite worlds? For it saith, where force is, there becometh number. The master, it hath more force. How confidently did my dream contemplate this finite world, not newfangedly, not old-fangedly, not timidly, not entreatingly. As if a big round apple presented itself to my hand, a ripe golden apple with a coolly soft, velvety skin. Thus did the world present itself unto me. As if a tree nodded unto me, a broad-branched, strong-willed tree, curved as a recline and a footstool for weary travelers. Thus did the world stand on my promontory, as if delicate hands carried the casket towards me, a casket open for the delectation of modest, adoring eyes. Thus did the world present itself before me today, not riddle enough to scare human love from it, not solution enough to put to sleep human wisdom. A humanly good thing was the world to me today, of which such bad things are said. How I thank my morning dream that I thus at today's dawn weighed the world. As a humanly good thing did it come unto me, this dream and heart comforter, and that I may do the like by day and imitate it and copy it best. Now will I put the three worst things on the scales and weigh them humanly well. He who taught to bless also taught to curse. What are the three best cursed things in the world? These I will put on the scales: voluptuousness, passion for power, and selfishness. These three things have hitherto been best cursed, and have been in worst and falsest repute. These three things will I weigh humanly well. Well, here is my promontory, and there is the sea. It rolleth hinder unto me, shaggily and fawningly, the old faithful 100-headed dog monster that I love. Well, here will I hold the scales over the weltering sea, and also a witness do I choose to look on. Thee, the anchorite tree, thee, the strong-odored, broad-arched tree that I love. On what bridge goeth the now to the hereafter? By what constraint doth the high stoop to the low, and what enjoineth even the highest still to grow upwards? Now stand the scales, poised and at rest. 3 heavy questions have I thrown in, 3 heavy answers carrieth the other scale. Voluptuousness unto all hair-shirted despisers of the body, a sting and a stake, and cursed as the world by all backworldsmen, for it mocketh and befooleth all erring, misinferring teachers. Voluptuousness to the rabble, the slow fire at which it is burnt, to all wormy wood, to all stinking rags, the prepared heat and stew furnace. Voluptuousness to free hearts, a thing innocent and free, the garden happiness of the earth, all the future thanks overflow to the present. Voluptuousness, only to the withered a sweet poison. To the lion-willed, however, the great cordial, and the reverently saved wine of wines. Voluptuousness, the great symbolic happiness of a higher happiness and highest hope, for to many is marriage promised, and more than marriage. To many that are more unknown to each other than man and woman, and who hath fully understood how unknown to each other are man and woman. Voluptuousness. But I will have hedges around my thoughts, and even around my words, lest swine and libertines should break into my gardens. Passion for power, the glowing scourge of the hardest of the hard, the cruel torture reserved for the cruelest themselves, the gloomy flame of living pyres. Passion for power, the wicked gadfly which is mounted on the vainest peoples, the scorner of all uncertain virtue, which rideth on every horse and on every pride. Passion for power, the earthquake which breaketh and upbreaketh all that is rotten and hollow, the rolling, rumbling, punitive demolisher of whited sepulchres, the flashing, interrogative sign beside premature answers. Passion for power, before whose glance man creepeth and croucheth and drudgeth, and becometh lower than the serpent and the swine, until at last great contempt crieth out of him. Passion for power, the terrible teacher of great contempt, which preacheth to their face to cities and empires, away with thee, until a voice crieth out of themselves, away with me. Passion for power, which, however, mounteth alluringly even to the pure and lonesome, and up to self-satisfied elevations, glowing like a love that painteth purple felicities alluringly on earthly heavens. Passion for power, but who would call it passion, when the height longeth to stoop for power. Verily nothing sick or diseased is there in such longing and ascending, that the lonesome height may not forever remain lonesome and self-sufficing, that the mountains may come to the valleys, and the winds of the heights to the plains. Oh, who could find the right prenomen, an honoring name for such longing, bestowing virtue? Thus did Zarathustra once name the unnameable. And then it happened also, and verily it happened for the first time, that his word blessed selfishness, the wholesome, healthy selfishness that springeth from the powerful soul. From the powerful soul, to which the high body appertaineth, the handsome, triumphing, refreshing body, around which everything becometh a mirror. The pliant, persuasive body, the dancer, whose symbol and epitome is the self-enjoying soul. Of such bodies and souls the self-enjoyment calleth itself virtue. With its words of good and bad does such self-enjoyment shelter itself, as with sacred groves. With the names of its happiness doth it banish from itself everything contemptible. Away from itself doth it banish everything cowardly. It saith bad, that is, cowardly. Contemptible seem it to the ever solicitous, the sighing, the complaining, and whoever pick up the most trifling advantage. It despiseth also the bittersweet wisdom, for verily there is also wisdom that bloometh in the dark, a nightshade wisdom, which ever sigheth, all is vain. Shy trust is regarded by it as base, and every one who wanteth oaths instead of looks and hands, also all over distrustful wisdom, for such is the mode of cowardly souls. Baser still it regardeth the obsequious, doggish one, who immediately lieth on his back, the submissive one. And there is also wisdom that is submissive and doggish and pious and obsequious. Hateful to it altogether and a loathing is he who will never defend himself, he who swalloweth down poisonous spittle and bad looks, the all too patient one, the all endurer, the all satisfied one, for that is the mode of slaves. Whether they be servile before gods and divine spurnings, or before all men and stupid human opinions, at all kinds of slaves doth it spit, this blessed selfishness. Bad. Thus doth it call all that is spirit broken and sordidly servile, constrained, blinking eyes, depressed hearts, and the false submissive style, which kisseth with broad cowardly lips. And spurious wisdom, so doth it call all the wit that slaves and hoary-headed and weary ones affect, and especially all the cunning, spurious-witted, curious-witted foolishness of priests. The spurious wise, however, all the priests, the world-weary, and those whose souls are of feminine and servile nature. Oh, how hath their gain all along abused selfishness! And precisely that was to be virtue, and was to be called virtue, to abuse selfishness, and selfless. So did they wish themselves with good reason, all those world-weary cowards and cross-spiders. But to all those cometh now the day, the change, the sword of judgment, the great noontide. Then shall many things be revealed. And he who proclaimeth the ego wholesome and holy, and selfishness blessed, verily he, the prognosticator, speaketh also what he knoweth. Behold, it cometh, it is nigh, the great noontide. Thus spake Zarathustra. And again we get the misunderstanding of balance. This was somewhat a attempt to reconcile the balance, but again it was focused more on the exclusion. Voluptuousness is not the great downfall. It is the resistance of the carnal desires that is the great downfall. It is the inability to recognize that the desires are the downfall. But it is not the desire itself. It is your succumbing to it. The same with all three of them. Man is meant to overcome these things. There are more of them. There are 7. right? There are 7 virtues, 7 vices. They are balances between each other. You are meant to walk the balance. You're not meant to be exclusionary of either side. I don't really have a whole lot more than that to explain in that. We already did that in the last one. So let's dive into the next one. 55. The spirit of gravity. My mouthpiece is of all the people too coarsely and cordially do I talk for Angora rabbits. And stranger soundeth my word unto all inkfish and pen foxes. My hand is a fool's hand. Woe unto all tables and walls, and whatever hath room for full sketching, full scrawling. My foot is a horse foot. Therewith do I trample and trot over stick and stone, in the fields up and down, and am bedeviled with delight in all fast racing. My stomach is surely an eagle's stomach, for it preferreth lamb's flesh. Certainly it is a bird's stomach. Nourished with innocent things and with few, ready and impatient to fly away, that is now my nature. Why should there not be something of bird nature therein? And especially that I am hostile to the spirit of gravity, that is bird nature. Verily, deadly, hostile, supremely hostile, originally hostile. Oh, whither hath my hostility? Oh, whither hath my hostility not flown and misflown? Thereof I could sing a song, and will sing it, though I be alone in an empty house, and must sing to mine own ears. Other singers are there, to be sure, to whom only the full house maketh the voice soft, and the hand eloquent, the eye expressive, the heart wakeful. These do I not resemble. 2. He who one day teacheth men to fly will have shifted all landmarks. To him will all landmarks themselves fly into the air. The earth will he christen anew as the light body. The ostrich runneth faster than the fastest horse, but it also thrusteth its head heavily into the heavy earth. Thus it is with the man who cannot yet fly. That is not true. That is a myth. Heavily unto him are earth and life, and so willeth the spirit of gravity. But he who would become light and be a bird must love himself. Thus do I teach. No, you don't. No, you don't. Not, to be sure, with the love of the sick and infected, for with them stinketh even self-love. One must learn to love oneself. Thus do I teach, with a wholesome and healthy love, that one may endure to be with oneself, and not go roving about. Such roving about christeneth itself brotherly love. With these words hath there hitherto been the best lying and dissembling, and especially by those who have been burdensome to everyone. And verily, it is no commandment for today and tomorrow to learn to love oneself. Rather is it of all parts of the finest, subtlest, last, and patientest. For to its possessor is all possession well concealed, and of all treasured pits one's own is the last excavated. So causeth the spirit of gravity. Almost in the cradle are we apportioned with heavy words and worths, good and evil, so calleth itself this dowry. For the sake of it we are forgiven for living. And therefore suffereth one little children to come unto one, to forbid them betimes to love themselves, so causeth the spirit of gravity. And we bear loyally what is apportioned unto us, on hard shoulders over rugged mountains, and when we sweat, then do people say to us, yeah, life is hard to bear. But man himself only is hard to bear. The reason thereof is that he carrieth too many extraneous things on his shoulders. Like the camel kneeleth he down, and letteth himself be well laden. Especially the strong, load-bearing man in whom reverence resideth. Too many extraneous heavy words and worse loads he upon himself, then seemeth life to him a desert. And verily, many a thing also that is our own is hard to bear, and many internal things in man are like the oyster, repulsive and slippery and hard to grasp, so that an elegant shell with elegant adornment must plead for them. But this art also must one learn, to have a shell and a fine appearance and a sagacious blindness. Again, it deceiveth about many things in man, that many a shell is poor and pitiable, and too much of a shell. Much concealed goodness and power is never dreamt of. The choicest dainties find no tasters. Women know that the choicest of them, a little fatter, a little leaner. Oh, how much fate is in so little! Man is difficult to discover, and unto himself most difficult of all, often lieth the spirit concerning the soul. So causeth the spirit of gravity. He, however, hath discovered himself who saith, This is my good and evil. Therewith have he silenced the mole and the dwarf, who say, Good for all, evil for all. Verily, neither do I like those who call everything good, and this world best of all. Those do I call the all satisfied. All satisfiedness which knoweth how to taste everything, that is not the best taste. I honor the refractory, fastidious tongues and stomachs which have learned to say aye and yea and nay. To chew and digest everything, however, that is the genuine swine nature, ever to say yea, that hath only the ass learned, and those like it. Deep yellow and hot red, so wanteth my taste, it mixeth blood with all colors. He, however, who whitewasheth his house, betrayeth unto me a whitewashed soul. With mummies, some fall in love, others with phantoms, both alike hostile to all flesh and blood. Oh, how repugnant are both to my taste, for I love blood. And there will I not reside and abide where every one spitteth and speweth. That is now my taste. Rather would I live amongst thieves and perjurers. Nobody carrieth gold in his mouth. They do these days. Still more repugnant unto me, however, are all lickspittles. And the most repugnant animal of man that I found did I christen parasite. It would not love and would not live by love. Unhappy do I call all those who have only one choice, either to become evil beasts or evil beast tamers. Amongst such I would not build my tabernacle. Unhappy do I call those who have ever to wait. They are repugnant to my taste, all the toll gatherers and traders and kings and other land keepers and shopkeepers. Verily, I learned waiting also, and thoroughly so, but only waiting for myself. And above all did I learn standing and walking and running and leaping and climbing and dancing. This, however, is my teaching. He who wisheth one day to fly must first learn standing and walking and running and climbing and dancing. One doth not fly into flying. With rope ladders learned I to reach many a window. With nimble legs did I climb high masts. To sit on high mast of perception seemed to me no small bliss. To flicker like small flames on high mast, a small light, certainly, but a great comfort to castaway sailors and shipwrecked ones. By diverse ways and wendings did I arrive in my truth. Not by one ladder did I mount to the height where mine eye roveth into my remoteness. And unwillingly only did I ask my way, that I was always counter to my taste. Rather did I question and test the ways themselves. A testing and a questioning hath been all my travelling, and verily, one must also learn to answer such questioning, that, however, is my taste. Neither a good nor a bad taste, but my taste, of which I have no longer either shame or secrecy. This is now my way. Where is yours? Thus did I answer those who asked me the way, for the way it doth not exist. Thus spake Zarathustra. And so we again dive into his distaste for people. It is more than evident all the way through that he does not agree with people, right? He was a solitary type of person. But this way, you do have to find your way. You do. It may or may not be one of the other ways. I, personally, have cast away the control system that I was raised in. I personally have found a way that I believe that God Himself has revealed to me through personal prayer, fasting, and meditation. I do not claim that it is the only way. I do claim that it is a way and that you can probably find that way yourself, and that through prayer, fasting, and meditation, you can find the truth in that yourself. That's in the Infinite Integrations playlist. I talk about my way in the Infinite Integrations playlist. I talk about why the other way is not my way in the Unconventional Bible Study. I am quite open about my way, but I do not believe it is the only way. I believe that there are many ways. I believe fully with my whole chest that God finds you where you are. God found me in a parking lot. He found me in a parking lot after I had been searching all of His houses all day. When my house, my personal story, let's get into it. 2016, we had a flood here in Louisiana, and it was devastating. Many people lost their homes. It took several years for even most of those people to get any kind of recompensation or be able to rebuild their houses. But I was blessed. I lived in a trailer that I owned outright. I paid lot rent on someone else's property for that trailer to stay there, but it was my trailer and I was looking for land to put it on. At the end of that year, the day before Thanksgiving, I got a notice that I was being evicted. Not because I didn't pay my bills, but because I was too young. Me and my wife were not welcome because this was getting turned into a retirement community. It was a pastor that was kicking us and our children out of our house. It was a pastor that was kicking almost everybody in the trailer park out. He had just purchased the property. It was his right. Okay, whatever. He came the day before Thanksgiving and gave us the notice that we were about to be evicted. But he didn't give us a date of eviction. So we tried to stay it. We were like, we do not have time, even if it's a couple of months, we do not have time to get things together for this. We had just spent $3,000 to be able to stay. We had to build a whole porch and able to stay on that property. We went and we fought it and it didn't work. So right before Christmas, we got the eviction notice. Like literally right before Christmas, the pastor brought us our eviction notice. And we had to scramble. We had to push and find a way to get it out. And in that process, we found somebody who stole from us. He came and he took $5,000, then he poofed. And then we found somebody else to help us out, and he came and he hooked up to the trailer and he went to pull it out and he laid it almost on its side. It had a 40-degree list. If you don't know what that means, it means it was tilted at a 40-degree angle. Part of it was laying on the ground where he had tried to pull it out and he didn't know what he was doing. And so we had to get somebody else in there to do that for us too. We wound up losing that home. They broke the trailer, like the frame was bent. There was so many problems that we could not live there. So we wound up homeless for the second time in 4 years. From that day, when my house that I owned, that everything I had was in this home, everything that I had ever worked for was summed up in this one possession. I had been disabled for a couple of years. I had finally got my Social Security disability, and I finally was able to purchase this trailer with almost the entire part of that money. It was laying on its side, and I looked at it and I started bawling. And so I went to look for a house of God. I went to every single church in my city, and every single church in my city had their doors locked. Every single one of them. I could not get in to sit at an altar and pray to God for help. And so I went in the parking lot and I bawled my eyes out underneath an oak tree. And God found me underneath that oak tree. That was the day that everything started shifting, was when God found me and I had cried my soul out because I could not get into his house. He found me in the parking lot. That started the journey that is the Unconventional Bible Study. That started the journey that is where we are now, with me bringing you these videos right here. And while all of that was a part of what got me here, when I was going through it, it was pretty fucking rough. I say all of that to say that I found my path through my God that found me sitting underneath an oak tree. He didn't find me in his building because I was not allowed in his building. He found me underneath an oak tree, crying despondently, ready to end myself again. And he gave me hope. He showed me a new path. He showed me a new way. And he told me that I had to bring it to you. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to follow it. He told me that I had to tell you. So when I tell you that I receive direct revelations on things, I mean that. And when I say that I do not intentionally step on toes, but that I do not apologize for it, I mean that just as much. Because my God found me underneath a tree. It was not underneath a cross. It was not in a building. It was not in a tabernacle. It was not in a temple. It was not anywhere but where he had created. I was underneath a tree and I was crying to my God because my entire world had just fallen apart. Everything that I had worked for, gone. I was broken, right? I've got 13 discs that are messed up. I have scoliosis. I have stenosis. I have all kinds of problems that cause me severe issues. And I didn't have a hope of going to work. I didn't have anything to look forward to. But my God found me underneath an oak tree, and he changed my entire world. We were homeless for 6 months, but we were never without a home. That was the second time we were homeless without a home. We lived on the mercy and the charity of someone else when I got in my wreck for 2 whole years. And then I got my trailer, and we lived in that trailer for 2 whole years. And then I was homeless again for 6 months. Through no fault of my own, I had nothing in that. But God found me because of that. He showed me this path because of that. I have been able to help people stay here because of the trouble that I went through. And it is worth every bit of the tears that I cried to save one person from ending themselves. I don't find the despondency in life that Nietzsche did. I don't find the despondency despite the fact that every single day somebody shows me that this world is terrible, that there are many, many people who do not seek enlightenment and in fact will despise you if you do. There are so many people out here to tell you that life is hard, that you're on a prison planet, that this is something that you just have to grind through, but you have to find the beauty in the struggle. You've got to find the purpose in the pain. And through the pain of me losing everything, like I'm about to break down again, but through the purpose and the pain of me losing everything, I've been able to help people that I will never get to see in real life. I have had people thank me for showing them that there is something on the other side of it. I have had people find their way, and there is nothing better than that. I freely give my information here. I share with you all kinds of things. I have several thousand hours worth of content now where this is what we talk about. We talk about real life. We talk about the struggles. We talk about finding the victory on the other side of the struggles, because there is victory on the other side of the struggles. But you are meant to walk through the struggles, even when they're hard. You don't get to choose to go home early. You don't get to choose to give up, and you don't get to choose to be mean. You don't get to choose to be bitter. You do not get to choose to self-isolate. There are times when self-isolation is absolutely called for. When you're praying, pray alone. When you fast, tell no one. When you meditate, do that by yourself. Now, I talk about when I fast because I am here to be an example. I am doing what I am told. But It's not every time. Y'all don't hear every time I fast. I fast a lot more than y'all ever hear about. That is a promise. And you won't. There are times when I do use that for the example. When the voices are telling me to end myself, I fast. I take it to God. Those are not my voices. Those are external forces, and I believe that. I believe that there are forces of evil. I believe that there is a force of good. I fight for the force of good. I am here trying to walk the path, the way. I believe that there is a way. But I believe that God will find you where you are. Your control system doesn't necessarily matter. If you are living according to the will and the express stated destiny of Christ, you're probably going to be all right. If you're upholding the 12 pillars of Islam, you're probably going to be all right. If you're living according to the tenets of Taoism, you're probably going to be all right. The control system doesn't matter. God will find you where he needs to find you, where you need him to find you. He found me under an oak tree. We're going to go ahead and wrap this one up because, again, we could get to another one, but it seems like a good spot to stop, and so I'm going to. I try to listen when I'm being told something. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat complicated subjects. I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay information, but it is not intentional. I do not apologize for it. I am here on a mission. I really am. I am trying to show as many people as possible that God does love you. That even though times are tough, it will get better. And if it doesn't, it's still going to get better. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment. If you agree or disagree, if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if you really like what I'm doing, hit me with that super thanks because I am not a communist. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me. And I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. This has been Pitt's Tape. Peace.